The victims and the suspect in the Brown Deer apartment shooting over the weekend have now been identified.
Fox 6's Angelica Sanchez tells us the suspect went on Facebook Live before turning the gun on himself.
No, have somebody come get my son. He in the house with me. No. Yes. Hey, y'all, I just want to say I'm sorry. This is going to be the last day everybody hear from me, bro. This is going to be the last day y'all hear from me, bro. I'm sorry. There's just been too much going on. Police out here. Police right there. Somebody come get my son first. This not finna end well for nobody, cuz. Yeah, so I've been dealing with a lot, but trying to. Ain't nothing finna justify my actions, bro. I've been dealing with a lot. I just need somebody to get my son. Sorry, y'all.
February 5, 2022, a Saturday morning in Brown Deer, Wisconsin. For 23-year-old Ariuna Reed, it was supposed to be a routine moment in her co-parenting journey, dropping off her 2-year-old son Egypt with his father Larvell Huddleston, a simple exchange that had happened countless times before. No one could have predicted that within minutes, gunshots would echo through the Park Plaza apartments, that a young mother would lie motionless on the pavement, that a neighbor rushing to help would meet the same fate, that a community would be locked down as police surrounded the building, and perhaps most disturbing of all, that the man responsible would broadcast portions of the standoff live on Facebook, his voice alternating between rage and resignation as he paced his apartment, weapon in hand, speaking directly to viewers while police gathered outside. "I have been through too much," he said to the camera, his words now evidence of a tragedy that could have been prevented. 3 lives ended that day. A toddler lost both parents. A family was shattered forever. Before we continue with Ariuna's story, I need to ask something important of you. This isn't just another true crime video. This is about a real woman whose dreams were cut short, a medical assistant studying to become a nurse, an entrepreneur with plans for the future, a devoted mother who put her son above everything. By liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and sharing Ariuna's story, you help ensure that she isn't forgotten. You join a community dedicated to highlighting the devastating impact of domestic violence and the system failures that sometimes precede it. Your engagement helps us reach more people with these crucial stories. Now, let me tell you who Ariuna Reed really was, beyond the headlines, beyond becoming another statistic. Born in 1998, Ariuna Nicole Reed, Ari to those who loved her, was far more than a victim in a news headline. She was the beloved daughter of Aaron and Tracy Reed, the cherished baby sister of Trenika and Aaron Jr., and a doting aunt to Amr James. Her family described her as the life of the family, someone whose presence transformed ordinary gatherings into celebration. At just 23, Ariuna had already built the foundation for a promising future. Working as a medical assistant, she was simultaneously studying to become a registered nurse, balancing textbooks and clinical hours with the demands of motherhood. Her dedication to healthcare wasn't just about securing a stable career, it reflected her natural inclination to care for others. But nursing was only one facet of her ambition. Ariuna had an entrepreneurial spirit that couldn't be contained. She ran a small design company and was in the process of establishing a vending machine business, revealing a young woman who understood the value of multiple income streams and financial independence. On social media, particularly TikTok, another side of Ariuna shone through. Her account featured viral dance videos and detailed scrapbooking projects, creative outlets that showcased her vibrant personality and zest for life. Above all else, Ariuna was a mother. Her son, Egypt, was the center of her universe, the motivation behind her relentless drive to build something better. Every late-night study session, every extra shift, every business plan she drafted, all of it was ultimately for him. She loved that boy more than anything, her father would later tell reporters, his voice breaking. Everything she did was to give him the best life possible. What makes stories like Ariuna's particularly heartbreaking is seeing all that potential, all those dreams suddenly extinguished. I'm curious, have you ever known someone whose life was cut short before they could fulfill their dreams? Someone whose absence left a void that can never truly be filled? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Now, to understand what happened that February morning, we need to examine the relationship between Ariuna and Larvell Huddleston, the father of her child. Ariuna Reed and Larvell Huddleston were no longer romantically involved, but they remained connected through the most important person in both their lives, their son, Egypt. Despite the end of their relationship, they had established what appeared to be a functional co-parenting arrangement. Every week included these exchanges, moments when Egypt would transition from one parent's care to the other's. To the outside world, especially to Ariuna's family, there were no obvious red flags about Larvell. Aaron Reed, Ariuna's father, would later express his shock at what transpired, describing Larvell as a perfect gentleman. He had even participated in Bible study with Larvell, finding nothing concerning in the young man's demeanor or behavior. "We never saw this coming," Aaron would tell reporters in the aftermath. "Not once did I think he was capable of something like this." This perception of Larvell as respectful and stable made the events of February 5th all the more bewildering to those who knew the couple. How could someone who presented himself as a devoted father and seemingly reasonable co-parent commit such a violent act? What the Reed family didn't know, what perhaps even Ariuna herself might not have fully recognized, was that beneath Larvell's composed exterior lay significant struggles. Originally from Chicago, the 26-year-old had moved to Wisconsin at some point, bringing with him invisible burdens that would later become devastatingly relevant. Their co-parenting relationship, while functional on the surface, existed within a complex context. Larvell was navigating his own challenges that would later be revealed through his social media posts and his final, desperate broadcast. The dynamic between Ariuna and Larvell represents something many modern families navigate, the delicate balance of raising a child together while living separate lives. For many, this arrangement works. Compromises are made, schedules are coordinated, and the child's well-being remains the priority. For Ariuna and Larvell, this balance was about to catastrophically collapse on what should have been just another Saturday morning exchange. February 5th, 2022 began like countless Saturdays before. Ariuna Reed prepared her son Egypt for his regular visit with his father. She dressed him, packed his bag with the essentials a 2-year-old needs, and drove to the Park Plaza Apartments in Brown Deer, Wisconsin, where Larvell Huddleston lived. What should have been a routine drop-off, a brief interaction lasting minutes, instead became the first moment in a cascade of violence that would leave 3 people dead and a community in shock. The exact details of what triggered the confrontation remain unclear, but what is known is that a dispute erupted between Ariuna and Larvell. What began as a verbal altercation quickly escalated beyond anyone's imagination. At approximately 10 o'clock a.m., residents of the apartment complex heard the first gunshots. Larvell, positioned on his second-floor balcony, fired at Ariuna, who was below in the parking area. She fell to the ground, mortally wounded. The sound of gunfire drew the attention of neighbors. A 31-year-old man living in the complex rushed outside, seeing a young woman lying injured. His instinct was to help, an act of human compassion that cost him his life. As he approached Ariuna, Larvell fired again from his elevated position, killing the Good Samaritan instantly. The violence continued. Another resident, a 36-year-old man, was shot in the leg as he either tried to assist or happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Unlike the others, he would survive his injuries. By this point, multiple 911 calls had flooded the Brown Deer Police Department. Officers responded quickly, arriving to find a chaotic scene. 2 bodies in the parking area, a wounded man seeking cover, and an active shooter barricaded in a second-floor apartment. As police established a perimeter and evacuated nearby residents, Larvell began firing at the officers from his balcony. Remarkably, none were hit. The situation had transformed from a domestic dispute to an active shooter scenario. with law enforcement now targeted. Inside the apartment, Egypt, just 2 years old, was present as his father moved through the rooms with a weapon, his mother lying fatally wounded outside. The toddler, too young to comprehend the tragedy unfolding around him, would end this day an orphan. The standoff had begun, and what happened next would be broadcast to the world in real time. Behind the shocking violence of February 5th lay a troubled history that few in Ariuna's circle knew about. Larvell Huddlestead had been quietly struggling with significant mental health issues, struggles he had documented on his own social media accounts long before that fatal day. In a revealing Facebook post from 2020, Larvell had written, "I suffer from paranoia and PTSD, so no, I'm not normal. I love people, I'm actually a people's person, but I don't FK with people. My environment most definitely played a major part of why I move the way I do." This public admission of his psychological challenges stood in stark contrast to the perfect gentleman that Ariuna's father had come to know. It revealed a man fighting internal battles largely invisible to those around him. What's more troubling is that at the time of the shooting, Larvell was already entangled in the legal system. Court records show he had a pending misdemeanor case for carrying a concealed weapon without a permit, a charge filed on October 7, 2020, more than 15 months before the shooting. Despite the weapons charge, Larvell remained free on a mere $250 0-cent signature bond. The conditions of his release specifically prohibited him from possessing concealed weapons without a permit, the very offense that had landed him in court. But perhaps most concerning was how the justice system had repeatedly delayed addressing his case. Originally scheduled for July 2021, his trial was postponed multiple times due to COVID-19 restrictions and court backlogs. By the time February 2022 arrived, his case had been rescheduled to March 14, 2022, a date Larvell would never live to see. The pandemic had created unprecedented challenges for courts nationwide, with Milwaukee County particularly affected. Social distancing requirements limited the number of courtrooms available for trials, creating a bottleneck effect that pushed cases further and further into the future. These delays meant that Larvell, a man with documented mental health issues and a pending weapons charge, remained in the community without resolution to his case, without court-mandated intervention, and potentially without adequate mental health support. I have to ask, how many tragedies might be prevented if our systems worked more efficiently? If you believe we need better mental health resources and more effective court processes, please hit the like button and share this video. Your engagement helps bring attention to these critical issues that affect communities everywhere. As police surrounded the Park Plaza apartments that February morning, they were unaware of the full extent of Larvell's struggles, but soon he would broadcast them to the world. As police established a perimeter around the Park Plaza apartments, Larvell Huddleston made a decision that would document his final moments in real time. He began streaming live on Facebook from inside his apartment, creating a disturbing digital record of the standoff. The video, which would later be removed from the platform but not before being viewed by countless people, showed Larvell pacing through his apartment, visibly agitated. His young son, Egypt, could be heard in the background, a 2-year-old child oblivious to the gravity of what was unfolding around him. "Me mentally, I've been through too much," Larvell said to the camera, his words coming in bursts between moments of silence. "I'm not straight, I'm not crazy, but it's a lot of I can't take." As viewers logged onto the stream, they witnessed a man in crisis, alternating between expressions of despair and defiance. At points during the broadcast, Larvell referenced shooting at police officers and expressed his intention not to be taken alive. Perhaps most heartbreaking was his request that authorities safely retrieve his son from the apartment. Even in his most desperate moment, some part of him recognized that Egypt needed protection, needed to survive this tragedy. Outside, tactical teams positioned themselves around the building. Negotiators attempted to establish communication with Larvell, hoping to secure the safe release of the child and a peaceful resolution to the standoff. Residents who hadn't been in the initial evacuation were instructed to shelter in place. Some watched the Facebook live stream from inside their own apartments, realizing with horror that the active shooter situation they were experiencing was being broadcast to the world from just doors away. The Brown Deer police chief would later confirm awareness of the Facebook live stream, though initially there was uncertainty about whether the person streaming was indeed the shooter. Multiple police sources would eventually verify that Larvell was the man in the video. As law enforcement strategized their approach, the situation inside the apartment reached its tragic conclusion. Before police could make entry or negotiators could make progress, Larvell took his own life. The standoff ended not with an exchange of gunfire between police and suspect, but with a third death, Larvell's suicide completing the day's devastating toll. When officers finally entered the apartment, they found Egypt physically unharmed but forever changed. In the span of a single morning, the 2-year-old had lost both parents, one to violence, one to suicide, a reality he was too young to comprehend but would someday have to face. In the wake of the tragedy, the Reed family faced the unimaginable task of processing their grief while simultaneously stepping up to care for Egypt, who had lost both parents in a single morning. "My hole ain't never going to be able to close," Aaron Reed Jr., Ariuna's brother, told reporters, his voice heavy with emotion. The family's pain was compounded by the suddenness and violence of her death, and by the knowledge that the perfect gentleman they thought they knew had taken her life. Tracy Reed, Ariuna's mother, emphasized the close-knit nature of their family and their unwavering commitment to raising Egypt together. "We're going to make sure he knows how much his mother loved him," she said. "We're going to make sure he knows who she was." A GoFundMe campaign was quickly established to help cover funeral expenses and to create a fund for Egypt's future needs. Community members, many who had never met Ariuna, contributed to ensure her son would have financial support growing up without his parents. The neighbor who died trying to help Ariuna, a 31-year-old man whose name was not prominently featured in media coverage, left behind his own grieving family. His act of courage, rushing toward danger rather than away from it, represented the best of human instinct. In the chaos of the shooting, his sacrifice risked being overshadowed, yet it stands as a powerful reminder of compassion in the face of violence. The Brown Deer community grappled with the shock of having an active shooter situation unfold in their midst. Residents of the Park Plaza apartments described the terror of hearing gunshots and seeing police swarm the complex. Some had to be evacuated. Others sheltered in place for hours as the standoff continued. For law enforcement and first responders, the incident became another traumatic experience in careers often marked by exposure to human tragedy. The officers who responded, the paramedics who pronounced the victims dead, the investigators who processed the scene, all carried away psychological burdens from what they witnessed that day. The ripple effects extended beyond those directly involved. Each person who viewed Larvell's Facebook live stream became a virtual witness to his final moments, raising questions about the role of social media platforms in broadcasting real-time violence and mental health crises. I'm curious, what state or country are you watching from, and have you seen similar tragedies in your community? Share in the comments below. Your experiences help contextualize how widespread these issues truly are. As the community began to heal, many wondered what lessons could be drawn from such senseless violence, and whether anything could have been done to prevent it. The tragedy of Ariuna, Reed, Larvell Huddleston, and the unnamed neighbor who tried to help reveals critical fault lines in our society that demand attention. First, there's the issue of recognizing psychological distress before it turns deadly. Larvell's Facebook post from 2020 was essentially a cry for help. "I suffer from paranoia and PTSD, so no, I'm not normal." He acknowledged his struggles publicly, yet it appears he may not have received the support needed to address these serious conditions. His statement during the live stream, "Me mentally I've been through too much," underscores how untreated mental health issues can escalate to devastating outcomes. For families navigating co-parenting relationships, this case highlights the importance of being alert to potential warning signs. While Ariuna's family saw Larvell as a perfect gentleman, his internal struggles remained largely hidden from them. This disconnect between public persona and private turmoil is common in cases of domestic violence, where perpetrators often compartmentalize their behavior. The judicial system's role cannot be overlooked. Larvell's weapons charge languished in the courts for over 15 months, repeatedly delayed due to COVID-19 restrictions and backlogs. His trial, originally scheduled for July 2021, was pushed to March 2022, a date that came too late for Ariuna and the neighbor who died trying to help her. This raises profound questions about how court delays potentially impact public safety. Would earlier intervention through the courts have made a difference? If Larvell's case had been resolved promptly, might there have been court-ordered evaluations or restrictions that could have prevented access to weapons? These questions have no definitive answers, but they demand consideration as we examine how to prevent similar tragedies. The presence of a firearm transformed what might have been a verbal dispute into a deadly encounter. Larvell's ability to access a gun despite having a pending weapons charge illustrates the challenges in enforcing restrictions on individuals not yet convicted but potentially at risk of violent behavior. For communities, this case demonstrates how violence rarely affects only the primary individuals involved. The neighbor who rushed to help Ariuna paid with his life. The 36-year-old man who was wounded will carry both physical and emotional scars. Residents of the apartment complex experienced trauma that day, and most heartbreaking of all, a 2-year-old boy lost both his parents. Perhaps the most important lesson is that violence prevention requires a multifaceted approach: accessible mental health services, efficient court systems, effective co-parenting support, and thoughtful approaches to firearm access. No single intervention would likely have prevented this tragedy, but improvements across these systems might reduce similar incidents in the future. As we reflect on Ariuna's story, we must ask ourselves, what changes are we willing to advocate for to protect others from similar fates? Ariuna Reid's story ended far too soon. At just 23, this vibrant young woman, a medical assistant studying to become a nurse, an entrepreneur with budding businesses, a devoted mother, a beloved daughter and sister, had her future violently taken from her on a routine Saturday morning. Her son Egypt, now being raised by his maternal family, will grow up with photographs and stories instead of memories. He'll learn about his mother's infectious laugh, her determination to build a better life, her creative spirit that shone through her TikTok videos and scrapbooking projects. He'll hear about how everything she did, every late-night study session, every extra shift, was ultimately for him. What happened at the Park Plaza Apartments on February 5, 2022 represents a devastating intersection of untreated mental health issues, delayed justice, and domestic violence. It shows how systems designed to protect can sometimes fail those most vulnerable, and how these failures can culminate in irreversible tragedy. But Ariuna's story doesn't have to end with just grief and loss. Her memory can inspire meaningful change. This is where you come in. By subscribing to this channel, you're joining a community committed to shining light on these stories, not for sensationalism, but for awareness and action. Each subscription strengthens our ability to bring these important narratives to a wider audience. When you like and share this video, you help ensure that Ariuna Reid isn't just another statistic. You affirm that her life mattered, that the circumstances of her death deserve attention, and that we must do better as a society to prevent such tragedies. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on what could have been done differently in the courts, in mental health services, in domestic violence prevention. Your perspective matters in this conversation. For those personally affected by domestic violence, remember that resources exist. National hotlines provide confidential support 24/7. Local shelters offer safe havens. Support groups create spaces where survivors can be understood and empowered. Ariuna Reid should be alive today, celebrating her son's milestones, pursuing her nursing career, building her businesses, dancing on TikTok, creating memories with her family. Instead, we're left with the painful task of honoring her memory by working toward a world where such senseless violence becomes increasingly rare. Subscribe now, share this video, join us in this mission, because every life lost to preventable violence is one too many, and every story told brings us one step closer to change.